Some brands live, others die, and some manage to resurrect themselves along the way. Hi guys, my name is Amy. I am the host of Girl of the Future, and today we're going to be talking about crumbl cookie and their art of the rebrand, because honestly, even though this brand is not in South Africa, it has been living in my mind rent-free for ages. And yes, for that note, I've never tried a crumbl cookie before. I've watched multiple people give reviews on them. Some people love it, some people hate it, other people are like, it's really doughy. I don't know, I can't tell you. I have tried a crumbl cookie dupe, however, here in South Africa, and I will say they were pretty good. And if you would like the name, you can just message me. I will give you the name, or I'll put it in the comments somewhere. But I mean, the cookie was pretty good. Anyways, let's get into the episode. So where was crumbl cookie started? Well, on September 29th 2017, ironically enough, I am born on the 30th of September, so this brand being a Libra makes a lot of sense, because it just does. And I don't care if you're not into astrology, I think that the brand being a Libra makes so much sense, because I am a Libra, and honestly the pink color that they chose is just so on brand. 2017, September 29th, two cousins decided that they were gonna open this place up in Logan, Utah. Logan, Utah is a weird name for a town, but I'm not gonna judge them because it's Utah. These cousins, what were their names? Their names were Sawyer and Jason. They decided that they were going to use a crepe shop, build their equipment first, and start testing their recipes later. Thereafter, they went on to do recipe testing with A and B testing. Now, what is A and B testing, guys? A and B testing is when you take maybe two different recipes and you try them out with sample groups of people. You're obviously going to want to see which recipe lands more with your consumers and which recipe should maybe stay in the drafts. And yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty cool that they decided to do A and B testing, because baking is something that either people like it or they don't. And I think they took the extra steps to kind of ensure that the recipe was perfect. What did they do after that? They decided to open shop with their first ever open plan kitchen in 2018 with beautiful pink boxes. Now, if you've seen crumbl's old logo, it looks nice. I think nice is a nice word to use for this. It's not the best, but it's not the worst. Is it anything like the branding that they have right now? No, but it'll do for 2018, of course. They introduced the rotating menu in 2018, with there being a recipe bank of over 200 recipes to choose from. So I think the idea of rotating recipes is quite marvelous, actually, because you have a simple concept of having a cookie, something so simple, something so minor, and you have decided that you are going to elevate it and make it really, really cool with new flavors. I wish there were more businesses like that, and I wish more businesses had dedication to rotational flavors. I mean, yeah, sometimes it does become quite confusing for consumers, because they're like, okay, my favorite flavor is probably not going to be there next week. But I think that if you draw the line really well, it can become something very exciting, because then people are like, oh my word, you know, yay, I'm trying something new. And I remember, like, there's this one Instagram page that I follow, and they have like the crumbl cookie of every single week. Like, they do the forecasting, and and I just love it. I'm like, oh my word, yay. Oh my word, key lime pie cookie coming out. Never gonna try it because I'm definitely not in the US right now, but I'm still excited to see that they're changing the cookie up every single time. And that is a novelty that then became a hallmark of kind of what their business was about. People were loving these crumbl cookies. They were really like, man, this is something we need to invest in. So what happened? The first franchise happened in Bountiful, Utah, where a bunch of locals actually loved the product so much they decided they were going to open up a franchise and talk to Sawyer and Jason about opening up a franchise. And a franchise they did. Then on, the crumbl cookie boom was everywhere. Everybody wanted a piece of crumbl cookie. By August 2020, they had 100 stores. By July of 2021, they had over 300, and they had over 400 by the end of 2024, with 1,071 stores across the US and Canada. Now, if that is not dedication, then I don't know what is. I think it's more expansion than dedication. But if that's not expansion and dedication, then I don't know what is. Clearly, their business plan was perfectly baked. I'm going to see myself outside of the room right now by saying that joke. And now onto the segment that a lot of you will be maybe more familiar with: viral marketing and cultural reach. So yes, if you're wondering, Amy, did you just search up the brand? You know, one day you just stumbled upon it and you just thought, I love this cookie brand. No, I found out about this brand through the memes, the pop culture, and everything around it. So they were strategic, okay? They wanted more They wanted the world's eyes on them. They didn't just want the US and Canada, okay? They wanted everybody looking at them. So what did they do? They made a social media strategy that could not be beaten, opening up crumbl cookies and amassing over 1 million followers on TikTok. Quickly now 7 to 9 million across all of their socials, which is insane for a cookie brand at that. So how exactly did they drum up support? How exactly did they get all these social media followers? Well, it started also with some celebrity collaborations. Of course, you know of the infamous Benson Boom cookie that just came out. I must say, the entire advertising campaign around this cookie is hilarious, and honestly, I'm going to give him his 10s for that, because not a lot of people can get everybody's attention on them and doing backflips. So give the guy his 10s. Second, they had obviously the Olivia Rodrigo Guts cookie. I find the idea of jam in a cookie being quite strange. I think it had jam in it. It looked like jam, but maybe not for me. Maybe for the fans. So yeah, they had a bunch of celebrity collaborations, which of course will drum up support. They had UGC, which is user-generated content. So this is basically when consumers will make content for you, or influencers will be paid to maybe make content that doesn't necessarily involve them, but just involves the product. It's also just a cheaper way to not have to have your creative team constantly making content, and rather to get consumers to do all the heavy lifting for you. Weekly flavor drops was something that really shaped the brand. And also on that note, they were also not shy to repost when customers would post about them, because a lot of traction that comes with the business is also from consumers, organic consumers, kind of going ahead and saying, hey, this is what I think of the business, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So yes, okay, perhaps they maybe wouldn't have posted the bad review, but they are going to post maybe the good reviews, or maybe the reviews just testing the brand out. So some of those were organic. It wasn't all paid. They also played into meme culture. I think that them choosing Benson Boone was meme culture, but shame, I'm not gonna hate on this guy. I think that there's already such a buzz around him for very polarizing reasons. So obviously they're not afraid to jump on the controversy train, and it wasn't even through them, hilariously enough. But 24, crumbl Australia officially launched. Now I don't know about you, but I never heard about anything happening in crumbl for Australia, So when I saw this pop up, I was like, ooh, this is interesting. Does that mean they're gonna come to Africa? Does that mean they're gonna come to South America? Does that mean they're gonna come to Asia? What's happening? Are they finally doing a global expansion? No, they're not, because it seems that somebody decided to make it a scam. So apparently this whole thing, okay, listen, do not quote my words for this. I heard this from a YouTube video where basically they were talking about the whole thing, but essentially somebody got crumbl cookies from the US and then shipped them out to Australia, and then made an entirely completely different crumbl Australia page, obviously to tease this entire thing, and thereafter it was found out to be obviously a fraud. Now, not only is it very sad to get cookies that were shipped over from another country and you don't know how fresh they are, but I think it's also really sad that the pop-up wasn't real because of how expensive those cookies are. They're not cheap. They're literally not cheap cookies. And I'm not just saying that as a South African with a really bad exchange rate. I'm saying it as a consumer in general. It's just not cute to get cookies that are probably a few days old, and it's not even from the country of origin. It wasn't even baked there. So yeah, I guess that is kind of just how crumbl crafted their social media strategy. Now, let's get into some stuff that is a bit crazy. Because as much as we love the sweet, we also have to get into the salty. In 2022, they were reportedly accused of having child labor fines, which is insane. Crazy work to me. Incredibly crazy work to me. With trademark lawsuits with Warner Music, as well as quality critiques filling in the gaps as far as just not good things happening with the business. They had store closures in 2023 and 2024 as part of their growth recalibration, with 7 locations being closed. And then we also had the reviews. Now, I did talk about the reviews earlier. Obviously, they had user-generated content, and I did talk about the fact that perhaps they weren't maybe that keen to talk about the bad reviews. However, you cannot stop the internet and you cannot stop the people, because they will come out with honest reviews once in a while. Now, once again, this is not my opinion. This is the opinions of others. So I would suggest taking this with a grain of salt. But essentially, the cookies were called fine, overhyped, and doughy. Now yes, some people do over-exaggerate their reviews because they want to hop onto a bandwagon. Yes, we do know this. But there were some people that genuinely came out with critique. Now, as somebody that does do recipe testing and developing, I will say, if I did taste something and it was genuinely bad, I'm not going to go and recommend it to my friend. That is one thing I will not do. Because if I do not believe in the integrity of a product, I will definitely not give that to somebody that deserves a good experience. But yeah, I mean, people came out with bad reviews. You can't stop them. And I think it's something that, one has to acknowledge. As a brand, it's very important to see where your shortcomings are and to try your best to fix them. Because at the end of the day, as much as sometimes the customer isn't right, most of the time they do have valid reasons as to why they don't like something. And oftentimes it does have to do maybe with quality. So in 2023, they decided they needed a rebrand. So where did they go? Turner Duckworth completely changed crumbl's life. And if you don't know what Turner Duckworth is, they are an agency, and I think they were in charge of the crumbl rebrand. Don't quote me on this. But they decided to come up with crumbl Sans, which is a typeface that crumbl could use for all of their media. They then went on to come with a crumbl pink that was inspired by a pink Cadillac, as well as other Pantones that suited their vibes. They went on to go for a very corporate Gen Z illustration style, which for some reason works really well with their branding. I think it looks quite cute for this particular brand. And overall, I feel that they've truly found their voice through this rebrand. It looks fun, but elevated. It looks cool, but relatable. And I think there's something to learn from how they've used beauty industry aesthetics to appeal to their consumers. Now, I did talk about edible branding in my first episode, and you can definitely go check that out. And I mentioned Rhode and Fenty and many other brands that also did this before. However, I will say that the way that they have marketed themselves is very sleek, but at the same time still very cookie brand. I just love how they've taken a simple thing like a cookie and have decided to go about it in such a different way. And I think that's why there needs to be an intersection between branding techniques when it comes to industries. Because, I mean, hey, we can look at Jacquemus' bread with the butter and how they put their logo on there and how it elevated a lot of things in their brand. Or we can kind of look at how Rhode did that as well. And I think it's so important to kind of have intersections between the culinary industry's marketing and between beauty and between fashion and kind of lean into each other, because they definitely did that. So yes, I think that this branding, I mean, let's get into the photography. The photography that they've used is clean, okay? It's simple. Okay, you take a cookie, you mask out the background, and you place it on a color. And there was something so cool about how they had a complementary color for each cookie. If it was mango, it would have a yellow color. If it was key lime, it would have green or yellow. And there was something really cool in that, because it was color coding and so simple, but yet so impactful. The cookies look desirable. Everybody wants to taste a crumbl cookie now, because it took cookies and elevated them into a league of their own. So let's talk about some brand lessons that they have learned. So they have realized that any publicity is good publicity. And as the saying goes, they took the hate that they got, all the bad reviews, and they realized that it drove them with more shares. Because hate became earned media. It wasn't anymore about covering it up, but rather allowing it to live so that people could click on the brand and see what was going on with this crumbl cookie brand for everybody to want to talk about it. And yes, of course, the branding that they did got backlash. People were like, dude, this is boring. This is forgettable. And yet somehow it managed to pay off, because that branding is what skyrocketed them to fame. Their ability to lean into things like memes and UGC and celebrity collaborations with a prominent Gen Z creators was what got them where they are. I mean, for example, another thing as well, besides Gen Z, they did cookies with the Kardashians, okay? You know the Kardashians. If you don't know the Kardashians, I'm sorry, I can't tell you anything, but they're a very famous family, and them collaborating with the Kardashians truly showed me what positioning they wanted to have. They were going, not just for, a quality cookie, but they were going for what was going to make them stand out from the rest, because there are other competitors in the market. Me personally, I can't really speak about the US market, but I will say that it is a fleeting business, because there's always going to be somebody new coming up when it comes to food, especially when it comes to desserts. There's always going to be somebody coming in and doing something more better and more brilliant and more fantastic than you did prior. So it's always important to stay ahead of the curve, and I think they've really done that. The key lesson is controversy, when intentional, is cultural currency. And I think we can also just take a note about crumbl Australia and kind of how they were able to take a controversy, made the point proven that they were that good of a brand or that famous of a brand, that people were willing to scam others in a completely different continent to buy their stuff. And I think that in itself is a testament to the brilliance of their branding. So what are the key takeaways from this? Control brand death. can spark a rebirth that is much stronger than its original inception. And I think that was a really good example of that. They took their branding and for some reason found a way to rebirth it and reintroduce it to consumers that felt authentic and brand new. It's not like the brand just appeared. It existed for a while, and then they decided that they needed a refresh. They needed something different. So with the rotational menu, I mean, it's a very simple concept, but I think just kind of keeping it fresh and new in that way built up excitement for people. People were wanting to know what was the next cookie of the week, and that was something that they genuinely looked forward to. And through that, it built them hype. Their storytelling, the way that they went on about community, the celebrity collaborations, all of that echoes back as to what is part of their story. Their visual identity is not vanity. It is narrative. As much as it functions as an aesthetic piece of their brand, it's still something that says a lot about them as people, them as a company, and how they want to show themselves to the world. And that's why I often urge those that want to brand, when branding is done, it has to be done with a story or an intention behind it, otherwise people will see through the facade. They will. Oftentimes brands think that consumers don't notice the small things. The thing is, they do. They notice that and more. And hate, at the end of the day, is shareable. Don't fear backlash if it aligns to your brand story. They took their hate and they decided to prove them wrong. They wanted to show everybody our cookies are okay. Our cookies are good. Our cookies are not what people are saying. And whatever they decided to do with that hate clearly worked because people were still tapping and seeing what is crumbl cookie doing. Crumbl did not just refresh. They did a pink-powered rebirth that demanded attention. And through that, they found a way to get not only their loyal customers that were existing, but a whole new wave of customers that they previously had not tapped into before. And that's why rebrands, I feel, can be so powerful if you know exactly what your issues are. And if you know how to pivot forward, you'll never be irrelevant. You'll always somehow find a way to rebirth yourself over and over again. Their ability to lean into things is their power. Their ability to rebirth themselves is their power. And most importantly, if they can get somebody like me from South Africa to pay attention to them, then they've got the world's attention. Anyways, that was me, Amy. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to follow me on Instagram. I have some Instagrams. I've put them in the bio. And yeah, see you next time for next week's episode of Girl of the Future. I hope you enjoyed it. Bye.